A lot of people are going to be very disappointed if Ed Miliband is not Chancellor today. But I thought one of the most interesting things that Andy Burnham said in his interview today was that he was in talks with the Treasury over the weekend. This was in the context of him floating, raising personal allowance. Now that, to me, is a signal that he wants number 10 to run economic policy much more than previous. The fact that he's saying that and doing that and making these kind of statements before he's even announced his Chancellor, I think is a statement of intent that they would like a Chancellor who bends much more to number 10. And of course, from that, you sort of look at the candidates and think, who is more likely to bend to number 10? Well, it's probably not Ed Miliband.
The issue that you're going to have, I'm glad you asked the question about the election, is who's voted for 40 years of neoliberalism to be rolled back? If you think that we've had 40 years of neoliberalism, that's because we've probably had, in 40 years, an entire number of elections when people have voted for what amounts to neoliberalism. And if you want Manchesterism and rolling back neoliberalism, then do you not need at some point to ask, I don't know, the members of the public if they actually want you to do that? Because he's caught on the paradox, isn't he? That the more bold he is, the less mandate he has. And the less bold he is, the less difference is to the last guy who was absolutely kicked out because he was useless.
Yeah, and I think what's really crucial here, and we saw this from Lucy Powell yesterday, who was out speaking on the Sunday morning round, basically one of Andy Burnham's close allies. She was saying that whole rolling back neoliberalism thing, that's his political theory. That's what drives him forward. That's what he really believes. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be applied literally in terms of what he does in government. That's his ethos. That's what guides him. You have to wait to see what that means in terms of tangible policy. I think, though, that's going to be really important, what you just said there, because the more he departs from the path that Labour won the election on, the more difficult it is to argue that he's got the credible kind of mandate to do that. That may be what his backbenchers want, but is that what the country feels they voted for? And where does the proof point come when people feel they can see the change? Will it matter in the end?
Loads of you having an opinion on this already. 0333 003 235. So let's talk to Times Radio's political editor Anna Mikhailova, who's in Downing Street this morning. Morning, Anna.
Good morning, Stig.
I just want to read you a text that Lisa's just sent in, and there we go. The first argument and division out in the open is Ed for Chancellor or else. I mean, Neil Lawson was quite keen not to say that in terms, but it's quite clear, though, that there is going to be ructions over a direction of a cabinet that we're about to get announced. Although he's very relaxed, old Andy Burnham, there are tensions already in what precise direction he wants to take the party in.
That's right, and as a senior member of the Labour left told me last week, a lot of people are going to be very disappointed if Ed Miliband is not Chancellor today. But I thought one of the most interesting things that Andy Burnham said in his interview today was that he was in talks with the Treasury over the weekend. This was in the context of him floating, raising personal allowance. Now that, to me, is a signal that he wants number 10 to run economic policy much more than previous. The fact that he's saying that and doing that and making these kind of statements before he's even announced his Chancellor, I think is a statement of intent that they would like a Chancellor who bends much more to number 10. And of course, from that, you sort of look at the candidates and think, who is more likely to bend to number 10? Well, it's probably not Ed Miliband, who is known for having his own vision and his own way of doing things.
That's so interesting. So just explain today, before we talk more about Burnham himself, how's it going to work, the timings of everything? Because you're there, it's going to be a big day of pomp and process has to happen first, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So Keir Starmer is dusting off his final morning in Downing Street. He spent the weekend in Chequers with his family, and we're expecting him to come and make a speech outside Downing Street at 11:15. Then he's going to head over to Buckingham Palace to formally give his resignation to the King, after which Andy Burnham will travel to the palace and then back here to Downing Street, and he's slated to speak just before 1 o'clock, so we will hear his first statement And after that, and throughout the afternoon, we're going to see the cabinet appointments. And, we can expect those people who are going to be getting the senior jobs, they'll be walking behind me on this street into Downing Street. So there'll be quite a visual element to that.
They've kept it very tight, haven't they? Because we're still speculating, does Miliband replace Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary? Does he go to Foreign Secretary? We're going to hear later that Donald Trump probably doesn't want Miliband as Foreign Secretary. What happens to Wes Streeting? What happens to welfare? Does Pat McFadden get to stay and change the welfare system with someone else going to get brought in? Are you hearing anything, or this has been tighter than normal for a cabinet reshuffle, isn't it?
I mean, Team Burnham has been praised at how tightly they have kept a lot of news, although, of course, the speculation over Ed Miliband and Shabana Mahmood has left some MPs quite unhappy because they think there's too much briefing from either camp. Team Burnham will say that was nothing to do with them, but, of course, by not announcing and having a Chancellor clear, that has left a vacuum for that kind of speculation and those kind of briefings to occur. There'll be a lot of MPs who will be delighted that the announcement, whatever it is finally made, because that will put a stop to that. In terms of the other jobs, I mean, I spoke to Jonathan Reynolds, who is the current Chief Whip, not expected to be Chief Whip for much longer, but on Friday he made the point to me that, in all of these in all these appointments, they often don't go to plan. So they will have a plan A, but then they'll also have plan B, plan C, and it is not everyone will want to take the jobs that they're offered.
That's such a good point. Just before you go, the line that stood out for us reading the paper this morning is Andy Burnham saying how relaxed he was about the job. When David Cameron said he thought he'd want to be Prime Minister because he'd be good at it, he got absolutely pumped by people for being cocky and hubristic. This is a dangerous tone that Burnham's striking here, isn't it?
I mean, to be fair, he, I think in the same breath, said that he understands that being Prime Minister is a very serious job, and he was saying he was relaxed because he says he's got a plan. I mean, that's the message he's trying to land, that he has a plan, which of course is trying to address some of the criticism that he doesn't. But I mean, just to give you a flavour of how his day is going to play out beyond the public side of it, as soon as he walks into Downing Street, first he'll get a briefing, he'll meet his senior officials, and then he'll be taken into a room and given a briefing about national security. He'll then have to write some letters setting out what his instructions are as Prime Minister in the event of a nuclear attack. The old ones from Keir Starmer will be summarily shredded. So I think as soon as he starts getting those kind of briefings, the job and the magnitude of the problems facing the world are going to hit home, and he might not be quite as relaxed after that.
I think that's a very, very fair summary. Anna, great to speak to you. We'll speak to you later on.
Thanks, Stig.
That's Anna Mikhailova there, Times Radio's political editor, live in Downing Street.
It is 7:21. Times Radio's Dominic O'Connell will update us on the business news next. This is Times Radio Breakfast with Stig, Abell and Kate McCann in association with Nationwide, a good way to bank.